أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Assalaamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. This is me again, Imam Luqman Ahmad, bringing you a Deen short. This time I want to talk to you about the methodology of the Prophet when he taught, which is very important. The Prophet, one of the things he said, Inni utitu jawami al-kalim. Verily, I was given the ability to speak comprehensively, and the Prophet did speak comprehensively. Now, there was about 120 or so thousand companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is according to Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and other scholars. And most of the companions of the Prophet only saw him on a few occasions. I mean, there were some who saw him all the time, those who traveled with him, those who fought in battles with him, the people, what they call the people of Sufa, about the 90 or so companions that used to live in the Prophet's mosque in Medina. They would live there, literally. They were mostly unmarried people, and they spent a lot of time with the Prophet because they was there every time he came outside his house. But most of the companions of the Prophet only saw him for a few times, and they would hear from him here and there. And so the Prophet said, Inni utitu jawami al-kalim. I was given the ability to speak comprehensively. So when he would say something, most of the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam are less than a paragraph. I mean, usually a sentence, 2 or 3 sentences, and that was it. And in that sentence would be a lot of guidance, because the way that the Prophet taught, mostly it was foundational knowledge. It was something that you could build your life on. He dealt with episodic things. He dealt with fiqh points, things like that, haram and halal. But most of what he taught was foundational. It was something that you would not just use for your circumstance right there, but you could use it throughout your life. It was one principle you could use throughout your life. Like one time a man came to the Prophet for guidance, and he said to him, ittaqillaha haythuma kunt wattabi' as-sayyi'ah hasana tamhuha wa khaliq an-nas bi khuluqin hasan. He said to the man, ittaqillaha haythuma kunt. Fear Allah no matter where you are, and follow every bad deed with a good deed, because it will erase it, and treat people with good character. So this is like a foundational thing that the Prophet taught. So we were talking about back in the day when people used to convert to Islam. And I've been giving dawah for about more than 40 years. So back in the day when people would convert to Islam, there was a minimal standard of knowledge that they would have to learn. And it was real simple. Back then there was no internet. We didn't have international connections like people do now. You couldn't just go email. You couldn't go to Google and find out things. You really got what you could get from the masjid, from individual Muslims. And there was a minimal standard that we used to put on people who converted to Islam that they would have to learn. And that was, number one, they would have to learn the last 10 surahs of the Quran, to memorize the last 10 surahs of the Quran, including also memorize Surah Al-Fatiha. So they would have enough so they can do their prayer. In the case of a man or a woman, they could lead the prayer. Women, of course, leading the prayer for women, but they would know how to do their prayer with respect to recitation of the Quran. That was number one. And they had to learn the Salat. They had to learn how to make the Salat, what are the rules of Salat, the names of the different Salawat, the times of the Salat, Jum'ah, the ruling for Jum'ah, and so on and so forth. And they would learn the Salat, the phrases of the Salat. Also, they will learn tashahhud. That was very important back in the day. They should know how to say the tashahhud. And they will learn ayatul kursi. And they will learn the different dua. There's masnoon, the dua from the Sunnah that the Prophet used to say after his salat. Like the subhanallah 33 times, alhamdulillah, and also Allahu Akbar 33 times, that sort of stuff. So we were talking about that. So somebody asked me a question. They said, Imam, what should you learn now? Because there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff out there. There's so many books and thousands of books and so many sheikhs and so many videos, and there's a lot of information, although it seems that people are no less than they did in the past, but there's a lot of information out there. So they said, well, what does the new Muslim, what should they learn? So I started to think about different foundational aspects of religious learning. Okay, so there are a lot of hadith. Now, I want to talk about one specific scholar of hadith. His name is Abi Dawood, and he wrote the book called the Sunan. So you have the Sunan of Abi Dawood. And in that book, now, Abu Dawood, he collected about 500,000 ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he put in the Sunan of Abi Dawood, he put 4,080 hadith in that collection. And so, but he said that out of these hadith, he said, al-fiqh yaduru ala khamsati ahadith. He says all of fiqh, and fiqh meaning Islamic law. Fiqh also means understanding, but here it means Islamic law. It circles around 5 ahadith. Now, what he's saying is that not that Islamic law comprises just 5 hadith. No, but he's saying that there are 5 hadith that, if you look at these hadith, are Deen as a legal system, as a way of life, as a way of religious law and practice. It's built on these hadith. These are foundational hadith that you can use in every aspect of your life. Different aspects of fiqh, different aspects of law. If you don't know the details, you can go look at these hadith to give you a foundation so you have a direction to go in. So, these 5 hadith. Now, my suggestion and the purpose of this talk is that, number one, you have a minimal standard of things that you learn in your religion. And my suggestion is that the last 10 surahs of the Quran, Surah Fatiha, know how to make a salat from beginning to the end, the names of the salat, the times of the different salawat, ayatul kursi, and the different dhikrs that you say, the different the things you say after the prayer is over. But in addition to that, of course, we study Quran and Hadith. We're Sunni Muslims. This is what we do. But where do you start? A lot of places you can start. And I'm not saying to limit yourself to these hadith. I'm just saying one scholar's perspective, a very great scholar, I might add, his perspective of foundational hadith that our religion is built on as a whole. And he mentioned 5 hadith. In another narration about him, he mentioned 4 hadith. And there were other scholars besides Abu Dawood. There was Imam Shafi'i. He mentioned foundational hadith, 2, 3, 4 hadith that the religion is built on. Imam Ahmad did the same thing. Other scholars did the same thing. And the reason that they did this is to make the religion easier for people to understand. The best scholars of Islam are those who were simplest in their explanation of the religion. One thing I like to tafsir Ibn Kathir, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of tafsir, which is explanation of the Quran. But I personally, one that I like a lot, and I started with that, about 40-something years ago, was the tafsir of Ibn Kathir. Now, Ibn Kathir, he was a great scholar of tafsir, and he was a historian. But his words, the way he talked was very simple. He talked for the common man, common woman. So did Imam An-Nawawi. So did Jalaluddin Suyuti. So did Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So did Imam Shafi'i. So did Imam Malik. So did Dimyati and different other scholars of Islam. The best scholars, they spoke to the common people. Because they want the religion to be easy. The religion has to be easy. There's another hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, a sound hadith. He said, "Ad-Deen yusrun. وَلَن يَشَدِّدَ الدِّينُ عَلَى أَحَدٍ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ." He said, religion is easy, and the religion is not made difficult, made harsh on anyone except that it'll overpower them, and that is true. The basis of Islam is ease. And Allah says, Inna Allah yuridu bikum al-yusr wa la yuridu bikum al-usr. He says, verily, Allah wants ease for you. He does not want difficulty for you. Now, of course, some things are difficult, and we face difficulties in practicing our religion. That's life. But the religion should be easy. Understanding the religion should be easy. The concepts, when we communicate Islam, it should be easy concepts. It's not something you got to go, triangular understanding, go through different hoops to understand it. No, it should be very, very simple. So, I was talking about Imam Abu Dawud. And he said, Al-fiqh yaduru ala khamsati ahadith. He says, fiqh circles around 5 different hadith, and he mentions 5 hadith. The first hadith was the hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir. Inna halala bayyinun wa inna harama bayyinun. That hadith. And I'll kind of give you the full hadith of all of them after I'm done. But verily the halal is clear and the haram is clear. That hadith. The second hadith was where the Prophet said, La darar wa la darar. No, don't harm and don't be harmed. The third hadith was Innama amalu binniyat. That's a hadith of Umar ibn Khattab. Verily, deeds are judged by intentions. That particular hadith, Imam Shafi'i said about it, he said, هذا hadith is ثلث العلم ويدخل في 70 بابا من الفقه. He said, this hadith is a third of knowledge, and it enters into 70 different branches of fiqh, because it's a basic hadith. In the Ma'amal al-Baniyah, verily deeds are judged according to intention. There's a longer hadith, I'll explain it in a minute, but I wanted to go through these 5 hadiths. So far, we went to hadith in the verily halal is clear, and the haram is clear, the hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir. The second one was no harm, don't harm and don't be harmed. The third hadith is in the Ma'amal al-Baniyah, verily deeds are judged according to intentions. The fourth hadith is Deen and Nasiha. Religion is good advice, or religion is sincere advice, or some people translate it as religion is sincerity, meaning sincere advice. The fifth hadith is the hadith of Abu Hurairah. ما نهيتكم عنه فاجتنبوه وما أمرتكم به فأتوا منه ما استطعتم فإنما أهلك الذين من قبلكم كثرة مسائلهم واختلافهم مع أنبيائهم. I did the full hadith here where the Prophet said, verily what I have prohibited you from doing, stay away from it, and what I have commanded you to do of it what you're able, for verily those who came before you were destroyed because of the frequentness of their questioning and their differences that they had with their prophets. Now, so if you want to, I'm encouraging you to study these 5 hadith, learn these 5 hadith, because they're foundational hadith, and according to at least one great imam, that our whole religion centers around these particular hadith. The first one is where the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, inna halala bayyinun وإن حرام بين وبينهما أمور مشتبهات لا يعلمهن كثير من الناس فمن اتقى الشبهات فقد استبرأ لدينه وعرضه ومن وقع في الشبهات وقع في الحرام كراعي يرعى حول حمى يوشك أن يرتع فيه. The hadith, the Prophet said, verily the haram is clear. Verily the halal is clear. And between the haram and the halal are umurun mushtabahatun, or ambiguous matters, la ya'lamuhunna kathirun min an-nas. That most people don't know. I mean, most people don't know the actual ruling on these ambiguous matters. Not that nobody knows, but most people don't know. So the Prophet said, فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبَهَاتِ, whoever stays away from the ambiguous things, فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. He will have safeguarded his religion and his honor. And whoever falls into the shubahat, it's like he falls into haram. And he says, and this is like a shepherd who grazes his sheep around a sanctuary to the like he goes on the edge of the sanctuary, someone else's land sanctuary, almost falling in. And then he said, every king has a sanctuary, has a sacred land. And the sanctuary of Allah is maharima, that the things that he's made prohibited. And then he said, verily, in every jasad is a mudgha. Fi kulli jasadin mudgha. And every body is a morsel of flesh. إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله. If it's sound, then the whole body is sound. If it's corrupted, then the whole body is corrupted, and is not this morsel of flesh the heart. Now that's the first hadith. I'm not going to give you the full explanation of the hadith right now, maybe in another video, but I just want you to focus on this hadith, read it for yourself, and get an understanding. People don't always need a detailed explanation of Quran and hadith. Many things, yeah, you do. But so much of it is clear, even translated into English or other languages, because the fahm, the understanding, comes from Allah. It comes from your faith, belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. Fear Allah and Allah will teach you. I'm not saying you read hadith without explanation, no, but I'm just saying these foundational hadith are made so that anybody can understand them. That's the first one. The second hadith is La darar wa la darar. Don't harm anybody, and don't let anybody harm you. And to protect yourself, but don't go harming people. Okay. The third hadith, إنما أعمال بالنيات, and the full hadith is إنما أعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى. فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته للدنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. And this hadith, the Prophet said, in the Ma'amal al-Biniyah, verily these are judged according to their intention, and each person shall get what they intended. And whoever makes a hijrah, a migration for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, then his migration shall be for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. And whoever makes a migration for the dunya in order to gain from it, aw imra'atin yankihuha, or for a woman in order to marry her, then his migration shall be for whatever he migrated to or for. This hadith was about the hijrah. In fact, the part where he talks about the woman, there was a woman, her name was the woman of Qais. She was making hijrah, and it was a man who wanted to marry her. So he made the hijrah not because he was rolling with the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, but because he wanted to marry that woman. So when the Prophet found out, he kind of outed the man without being specific, pointing fingers at him, because that was the method of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, not to point people out and embarrass them if it could be helped. The next hadith after Imam was the hadith Deen an-Nasiha, which is also a longer hadith, and the way it goes, Deen an-Nasiha. Qulna, what the Prophet said, Deen an-Nasiha. He said, Deen an-Nasiha. Qulna, we said, Liman. The companion said, to whom? I mean, asking the Prophet after he said, Deen an-Nasiha. They said, to whom? He said, Lillahi wa li kitabihi wa li rasulihi وَلِأَئِمَّةِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَلِعَامَّتِهِمْ. He says that after he said the religion is sincerity, or sincere advice, and they said to whom? He said to Allah, to His book, to His messenger, to the Imams of the Muslims and to the general Muslim population. And it's different in each case. When you say nasiha to Allah, that means ikhlas lillah. That means, sincerity to Allah. That means making Allah one, worshiping Allah only taking Him as your Lord, following His kitab, believing Him, believing in everything He says. And when He says nasiha to the kitab, means taking the Quran as your constitution, believing in the word of God, the word of Allah, as He says in the Quran, believing that the word of Allah is above, is truer than anybody else's word. Following the word of Allah, living the word of Allah, studying the word of Allah, reciting the word of Allah, and giving the word of Allah its just due. That's nasiha to the kitab. And to the Prophet, it means following the Prophet, believing in the Prophet, loving the Prophet. The Prophet said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من ولده ووالده والناس أجمعين. The Prophet said, عليه الصلاة والسلام, none of you have believed until I am more beloved to him than his son, his father, and all the people. Allah mentioned in the Quran, He said to the Prophet, says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. He says, say to them, if you truly in kuntum tuhibbun Allah, if you truly love Allah, then follow me. Yuhibbukum Allah, Allah will love you and forgive you for your sins. So these are all, the rights. This is nasiha to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. In another hadith, and I'm giving a little explanation here, but in another hadith, the Prophet said, ذاق طعم الإيمان من رضي بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد رسولا. He says that the person who is satisfied with Allah as his Lord, with Islam as his religion, and with Muhammad as his messenger, then he has tasted the taste of faith. And then in this hadith he said, to have nasiha to a'immatul muslimina, the imams of the Muslims, and that's a lot in that too. That's giving advice to the imam, being sincere to the imam, being truthful with the imam, following your imam and what's good, not following your imam and what's disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It means in certain cases having bay'ah with your imam, praying behind the imam. A lot of things has to do with the imam, but it's having nasiha to the imam. Not two-faced to the imam, but having nasiha to the imam. And he said, wali ammatihim, and to the general Muslim population, having nasiha, giving good advice to the general Muslim population. That's the fourth hadith. The fifth hadith is the hadith, ما نهيتكم عنه فاجتنبوا وما أمرتكم به فأتوا منه ما استطعتم فإنما أهلك الذين من قبلكم كثرة مسائلهم واختلافهم مع أنبيائهم. And that hadith, the Prophet, this is a very simple hadith, also foundational. The Prophet ﷺ said, whatever I have forbidden you from doing, ما نهيتكم عنه فاجتنبوا, stay away from it. Whatever I forbade you from doing, just stay away from it. And whatever I have commanded you to do of it what you're able to do. فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. And then the Prophet said, فَإِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, because those people who came before you were destroyed because of their frequentness of their questioning. Not that they ask questions about fiqh, like Imam says, Imam Malik says, questions about fiqh. That's not what he means. This haram, this haram. No. After the Prophet used to tell him something, you got a whole bunch of questions. It's really not connected to the topic. You're just trying to get out of doing what the Prophet told you to do or asked you to do through questioning. Like the thing about the cow, read up in Surah Al-Baqarah. But anyway, so the Prophet said, إِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, those people that came before you were destroyed because they asked too many questions. وَاخْتِلَافُهُمْ مَعَ أَنْبِيَائِهِمْ, and because of the differences they had with their prophets. So these are the 5 hadith just mentioned by at least Imam Abu Dawud, that the religion of Islam circles around these hadith. Not meaning that these are the only hadith, but I'm trying to get you to look at the religion in terms of foundational knowledge and how the prophet taught and how to take principle, to be a principled person, not so much an episodic person. A lot of times we're episodic, which is, it's okay to be episodic when it comes to different points of fiqh, but it's better if you're new in Islam, even if you're not new in Islam, to learn your religion in the foundational aspects. So you start to have the ethics and the morality and the character of a Muslim, because you're building your life on foundation, on principles. And these 5 hadith that I just told you, these are foundational hadith, and I just giving you advice to study those. And if you're new to Islam, like I mentioned, learn the last 10 surahs, learn ayatul kursi, make sure you know Fatiha, make sure you know your purification, and make sure that before you learn anybody other's dhikr or witr or any other long dhikr, learn the dhikrs, learn the remembrances that was used by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Learn those first. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.